Hi everyone, it's Debbie with BookAndBuJo. Welcome if you're new, welcome back if you've been here before. Today, let's go through my HRCYED 2.0 spreadsheet and see if I completed or if I just missed it. All right, so here is the bingo board that was at the end of May, and I had just 2 squares left to get for June to complete. Now I do need to complete it by June 30th as I started July 1st. Now this year I'm going to start July 7th, so I will line up with everybody else, or at least with Q, for when I'm starting instead of doing the July 1st through June 30th. I'm going to do July 7th through July 6th next year. Let's go through some stats first, and then I will go through every single square on the bingo board so you can see what I read, and then we will end with those last 2 squares and see if I got it or not. I think that's what I'm going to do. So my points calculator, I am still currently reading a book, which it's not quite June 30th yet, but I'm sure I'll have this one finished before the end of the month, which doesn't really matter for HRCYED 2.0 because it doesn't work for anything. So I just need another book to read. But I do have everything in here, which is great. So many books, and then of course my points. So I ended up with 1,469 points, and that's not including the points I got from the secret prompt. So I earned 29 rereads, 14 DNFs, 5 triple ups, and I could short a prompt by 1 twice. And I only used 1 reread out of all of that, didn't use anything else. And then my tracker, look how colorful that is, so nice. And then once it starts getting towards the end, there's a lot more empty spots. It's a lot more just like month-long readathons and things like that. My plan for HRCYED 3.0 is to only put books that I read for HRCYED 3.0 in the tracker. For 2.0, I put everything I read. So basically used it as my monthly tracker, regardless of whether I read them for HRCYED or not. So I'm not going to do that for 3.0. I'm just going to use the books I used for HRCYED. I feel like that would give me more accurate stats for HRCYED itself, and I already have a spreadsheet that I use for my monthly books. I don't really need to input that twice, so that's the plan. And then my stats. So I've read a total of 356 books. I think it would have been really cool if I had 365, because that would be one a day. That's from July 1st of 2025 through June 30th of 2026. Total pages, 121,892. That seems crazy to me. 2,669.02, so basically 2,669 hours of audiobooks. And average days to read books, 4.8. Average reading, 4.22, which is amazing. Average pages a day, 344. Average hours listened, 7.5, so just over 7.5 hours. And total out of this world books, 135. I feel like there should have been more, because I do read a lot of fantasy, but that's okay. All right, we've got all the prompts that I did, all the genres. Actually, we'll move up to the map first. So we got the world map. I'd say I reached about half of the world. So I kind of, in here, not so much. I need to work on the southern half of the map for the future, just in general. And I have had books set in Greenland. I just didn't happen to have them this year. And actually, I kind of did. One of the books that I read before HRCYED, but because of one of the secret prompts, I was able to count it for HRCYED, and it was actually based in, the last half of the book is based in Greenland, but I don't think I wrote that in there. Let me look and see if I can find that. So I think in the tracker, I didn't include the books that I used, that I read earlier, that I was able to then include. So that's why that's not in here. But technically, I did read one in Greenland. But again, that's still north. So Greenland and Iceland. So I feel like more of this section will be taken care of. But you know. Okay, United States. Again, I'm missing most of the Midwest, which is weird. I did get Ohio, which is great. But I need Indiana and Kentucky and the South over here, Florida. I've had some books in the past in these. Alabama, Arkansas. Yeah, Mississippi. It's funny because these are all the states I've actually been to. Let's move me a little bit so you can see the publishers here. So a lot of indie books, which is great. We've got some public domain, a lot of Penguin. And I think some of this, I've been listening to a lot of audiobooks. And so a lot of the audiobooks, regardless of what the original publishing house was for the print version, these are all like Harper Audio, Listening Library, Penguin, a lot of those. So Simon & Schuster and Tantor Audio. But we do have a lot. I like the size of Wedge for the self-published, 40 books, so 11%. I would like to see that go up a little bit more, but the indie is 32%, which is great. Wraithmarked Creative, I have a few of those, mostly Kickstarter books. Simon & Schuster, Orbit, Del Rey, Blackstone, HarperCollins, Hachette. Most of those have been audio as well. Tor. All right, new versus reread. So mostly new. Reread was only 3.9%. And the other 96 was new to me, which is great. New books to me. Series in progress. Okay, let's start here. Standalones, 41%. Just started, 29%. In progress, 18%. They keep going down. Up to publication at 3%, and then finished 7%. I completed 25 series. That is so amazing. I love that. And then means read, audiobook 33%, which totally makes sense. And then ebook 26%, physical and audio 22%, hardcover 5%, paperback 3%. I definitely prefer hardcover over paperback. I get the floppy paperback thing, but I prefer hardback. And then ebook audio, 9%. Genres, again, there's so many. And of course, a lot of these are high epic fantasy, horror fantasy, magical realism, fantasy, mythological fantasy, paranormal fan. You know, a lot of them are still under the fantasy umbrella, but cozy fantasy, historical fantasy, romantasy, paranormal, dystopian, military sci-fi, historical romance. I had quite a few historical books in here. Urban fantasy, classic literature, 8%, which is nice. Mystery thriller. Okay, so my biggest ones are fantasy romance at 9%, classic literature at 8.5%, and high epic fantasy at 9%. The rest are pretty evenly divided after that. Nonfiction, 6% is another good chunk. I love that. And then we have covers. So yeah, blue covers 1, which is funny. That's not my least favorite. My least favorite color is probably red, and then probably blue. But yeah, most book covers seem to be blue, I feel. Next would be black at 50, 43 for white. That totally makes sense, especially if you're reading a lot of thrillers or horrors. A lot of them have black covers. Green at 39 and red at 27, gray 21, and orange 17. I've read a lot of orange books. Interesting. Brown books. So the brown kind of, for me, includes like browns and creams and kind of the neutral colors. And purple. Love it. Audience have 63% adult, 28% young adult, 3% new adult, 3% middle grade, and then 1% children's books. Publication year, all over the place, but because of the new releases, I'm sure 2025 and 2026 are the most on here. Yep, 2025 at 13%, 2024 at 9%, tied with 2023, and then 7% 2022. 2026 is 5%, and 2021 is 5%. So the 2020s definitely have most representation in here. Got lots of variety in publication year. A little bit less so this year, I feel, than normal for me, just because of this challenge. Usually I read a lot more backlist books and classics, like the older 1800s kind of books. So let's see, read the most from, we have, of course, Rochelle Mead, because I read Vampire Academy and Bloodline series both. And we have John Gwynne, which was from the Ketchup Book Club. V.E. Schwab was the Darker Shade of Magic read-along. Bengali, that was my personal challenge. T. Kingfisher, I read a lot of their books. And Ellen Montgomery, because I read the Anne of Green Gables series as well. So that's kind of nice. And everybody else is mainly one, so a lot. A lot of authors in here at one, but a few at three. So we've got like Charles Dickens, Elena Ferrante. That one should actually have 4 because I did read all 4 of the Neapolitan novels. Who else has 3? A.R. Colbert, I read the whole trilogy. Heather Fawcett, Allie Hazelwood, and Tad Williams. Yeah, because I read that whole trilogy as well. All right, so let's go ahead and go into each of the bingo squares and see what I read. By the 100s, I read The Summer Book, and that's by Tove Jansson. A book in the 200s, A Healer's Gift by Tao Wong. That was the first in the series. It was so cute. I liked it. 300s, Here Goes Nothing by Steve Toltz. It was okay. Wild Love by Elsie Silver for the 400s. I did enjoy that one. The Book Thief I did really like, and that was for the 500s. 600s, Gemina. I actually read the whole Illuminae Files series. It was so good. And then The Republic of Thieves for the 700 plus, and that's by Scott Lynch. And again, I finished that trilogy as well. Did enjoy that. All right, 24-hour readathon. And for this one, I read The Sandman by Neil Gaiman, Volume 2. Fangs, that was so cute, by Sarah Anderson. So cute, so cozy, just heartwarming. I just loved it. It was so cute. What If by Randall Munroe. First Flight by Mary Robinette Cole. That was also really good and very interesting historical fantasy with time travel. So good. And then April or May, I think, I listened to an audiobook, and that author was the narrator for the audiobook. Ragna Crimson, Volume 1. I did like that one. Eros, Philia, Agape by Rachel Swirsky. That one was interesting. And then Monstrous. That one was really good. Subgenres of choice. For fairy tale, so I picked sci-fi. And for sci-fi fairy tale, I read Cress, which is the first book in the Lunar Chronicles by Marissa Meyer. I read Ready Player One by Ernest Cline for cyberpunk biopunk. And Dystopian, I read Obsidio by J. Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. Paranormal, I read Portraits of the Forsaken by E.E. Holmes, and I believe that's the 4th book in the Gateway Tracker series. For space opera, I read Space Opera by Catherine M. Valenti. If you want, so it's kind of funny. There's some books that are like the fever dream kind of thing that I love, like Japanese Gothic and Bunny, but this one was just a trip. It was too much. It's like parts of it made me think a little bit of like the funness of Discworld, but ramped up like 500 times, and so it was a lot. Yeah, it was good. I don't know if I'd read the second book in the duology or not. For steampunk/gaslamp, I read The Pharaoh's Mask by Christopher Tubbs, and I did enjoy that one. That one was really interesting, and I'm intrigued enough that I want to continue with the series. And I did actually remember to submit all of my books, finally. It took me all day, but I did it. Sorry, Q, that I submitted everything at once instead of whatever I read each month. I will do better for HRCYED 3.0. For a series staircase, for a solo book, I was originally going to read Between Two Fires by Christopher Buehlman, and I did read that, but I ended up using The Only One Left by Riley Sager instead. That one was really good. Duology, I used parts of the Illuminae Files by Jay Kristoff and Amy Kaufman. For trilogy, I did read Girl Squad, Volta, Volition, and Volcanic, and that is by Emma Wong. It's one of her middle grade books series. So cute. And I would have loved that series as a youngin' growing up in middle grade. Would have loved it. Even high school probably would have enjoyed that. And then for 4 more, I put in the Vampire Academy books, at least 4 of them. I read all 6 of them, but I could have put Bloodlines in here as well because I read all of those as well. And then we move into award season. And for this one, I did start with a couple of entrants. And I read Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn, and this was the Edgar Award nominee. I am intrigued to watch the movie and see the differences or the similarities between them. And then Empire of Silence by Christopher Rocchio, also an entrant, and that one was for the Book Nest Award nominees in 2018. For a semi-finalist, I read Tourist Season by Bryn Weaver, and that was the Goodreads Choice Awards for 2025. And for a finalist, I read A Sorceress Comes to Call by T. Kingfisher, and that was a Nebula 2025 finalist. And the 2021 Reader's Favorite Book Award silver medal winner in urban fiction, and that is Cracks of Light by John Charles Reedberg, I believe. And then for winners, I went with the IAFA William L. Crawford Fantasy Award from 2022, and that was The Air Affair by Jasper Ford, and that was so good. And if you need a book for the Bookception prompt for HRCYED 2.0, The Air Affair mentions quite a few different books, but most predominantly Jane Eyre by Charlotte Bronte. But there's some other ones in there as well. And then the other winner is the Goodreads Choice Award for Fantasy in 2023, and that was Hellbent by Lee Bardugo. And then we move to TBR Challenge. And for this one, I chose Escape Camp Horacle with The Creepy Geek. And she actually, the one I decided, hey, I'm going to do this one. And I watched it. There was only 3 prompts. It was like the easiest one she'd ever had, which was really funny. And the cards I have down here are the ones that she chose. The first one was water, and I chose The Stone of Farewell by Tad Williams. And all of this in here is water on the cover. And then there's also water quite a bit mentioned throughout the book too, like crossing rivers and things like that too. And then love between, of course, Frankenstein, the Bride of Frankenstein. And I went with Wild Love by Elsie Silver. And then the last one was a combination. And for this one, I chose Orishas Among Mortals. And this one is by Antoine Bandelli. And this was a great book. Like, I really want to get into the rest of the series because this one was very intriguing. But this one, the card had 3 faces on it, and this one has 3 faces on it. So that's why I chose that one. And then we move to the last 10 years. And I actually went a little extra on this one. So we have 2015, and I read Destiny by Shannon Pemrick. And that one's the first book in a series, and it was interesting. Nothing amazing, but it was good. It was a good read. And then for 2016, My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. Again, interesting. And then 2017 is A Healer's Gift by Tao Wong. 2018, I read this one, so I was going to use it as much as I could. Space Opera by Catherine Valenti. Get the most bang for my buck out of that one. 2019, Positively Poisonous by Melissa Erin Jackson. That one was good as well. I really enjoyed that one. Fangs Again by Sarah Anderson. For 2021, Brat, an 80s story by Andrew McCarthy, memoir. That was really good. And I think most people probably wouldn't get quite as much out of it as someone from the 80s would, but it was interesting. I learned some things about not only his life, but also just the time period and some little behind the scenes looks into some of the movies that I enjoyed growing up. So that was nice. 2022, Battle Royale. That was so cute. I loved that one. It was just adorable. 2023, The Spite House by Johnny Compton. That one was atmosphere for days. If you like a good atmospheric book, go for that one. And then Orisha's Among Mortals again for 2024. 2025, I went with The Enchanted Greenhouse. And then for 2026, A War of Wyverns by S.F. Williamson, the second book in the series. So I decided to do every year. That was on there. Adaptations. So the source material was Peter Pan, and the modern retelling was A Land of Never and Night and by T. Archer. And I have read Peter Pan previously, but for this I did read A Land of Never and Night. The musical was Chicago, and I have seen that previously, but I've never read the source material by Maureen Watkins, and I did read that. And I think that it does a pretty good job. The musical did a good job adapting the book. And then we have a graphic novel / comic. Now, I have watched The Old Guard, the first movie. And for this one, I did read all of the volumes of The Old Guard, and I watched the second movie. So I did both. For play, the source material was by Oscar Wilde, The Importance of Being Earnest, and that was hilarious. It was so funny. And then I also watched the movie, and I believe that one was the one with Colin Firth. For TV show, the source material was Sanditon by Jane Austen, and I did read that. I did not watch the TV show, though, but I did get the book read. For web series, I have previously read the source material, which is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, and I watched the entire web series of the Lizzie Bennet Diaries, and it was amazing. So fun. And partway through, I'm like, hey, that actress is in one of the movies, one of my favorite Christmas movies ever. She was Jane, the older sister. And then for animation, we had Death Note, and this one is the animated. They have an animation, they have a movie, and then they have, of course, the graphic novel. And I watched the movie and I read the graphic novel. And then for movie, the source material is The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. And I do have that one on hold for my library, but I did watch The Thursday Murder Club, the movie, and that was really good. So good. My husband and I loved it. Next up, Disability Challenge. And for this one, I chose PTSD for the first disability, and I read Monstrous, Volume 1, Encephalitis Lethargica, and that was The Sandman, Volume 2, Someone Who is Blind in Dead Stars by Ben Galley, and that one is Part 1, and one of the main characters is blind, but the next book in the series, Part 2, that character is still in it, but then there's another character, a side character that comes in that is also blind. And then for Crohn's disease, Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. And then an amputation horror movie by Paul Tremblay. Now, I mean, it is just a finger, but it's mentioned a lot. So I used it. And then Heritage Month. And for this one, we have Disability Pride. I read V.E. Schwab's A Darker Shade of Magic, and the main character is gender fluid and is also missing an eye. For Hispanic Heritage, I read The Bewitching by Sylvia Morena Garcia, and I actually really enjoyed that. For Indigenous Heritage, I read Never Whistle at Night, and it's an anthology written by a bunch of different Indigenous authors, and it was really good. For a short story collection, I enjoyed that one. Black History, I read James Baldwin's The Fire Next Time. It was written really well, and I'm glad I read that. And then here's the book that's actually set partly in Greenland, and that's Sword of a Valkyrie by Melanie Karsak. This is the second book in the Vinland to Valhalla series, and I love this series. It is so good, and I love Melanie Karsak's writing. And I was lucky enough to get books 1 and book 2 as an arc. So I'm really hoping when book 3 comes out, she's taking a little break from the series because they're kind of heavy. But when it comes out, hopefully I can get the arc for the third one as well. Arab Heritage, we have Conqueror's Blood by Zamil Akhtar, the second book in the Gunmetal God series. That is a great series as well. Jewish Heritage, I read Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. That was great. I loved that book. And then AAPI Heritage, Natural Beauty by Ling Ling Huang. And then LGBTQ plus Pride, Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. And then we move to Translation Challenge, which was one of my favorite challenges. I loved this one. Let me know what your favorite square on the bingo board was. The first one I read was The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa, and that was translated from Japanese. That one was really good. Jawbone by Monaco Ojeda from Spanish. I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Harpman, and that's from French. That one was very interesting, kind of thought-provoking. And then from the Swedish, The Summer Book by Tove Jansson. And lastly, from Chinese, Cixin Liu's Death's End. And I think is it the second or the third? Might be the third book in the Remembrance of Earth's Past series. That whole series is amazing. Loved it. Can't wait for the second season to come out on Netflix. And then Around the World. This one was a really good one as well. And from North America, I read I Cheerfully Refuse by Leif Enger, and that was based mainly in the US, but also a little bit in Canada. For South America, I read Jawbone by Monaco Ojeda. Africa, I read The Pharaoh's Mask by Christopher C. Tubbs, and that one starts out in America, but then they go overseas. I think they are also kind of stop in England. Maybe it's just England, and then they go to Africa and kind of the Egypt area. And then for Europe, The Book Thief, and that's set in Germany by Marcus Zuzak. For Asia, Cixin Liu's Death's End. For Australia, Here Goes Nothing by Steve Toltz. And then for bonus Antarctica, All the White Spaces by Ali Wilkes. The Even Bigger Rainbow. This one was also fun. Found a lot of good books. For Red, I read Crazy Love by Francis Chan. For Orange, A Time of Dread by John Gwynne. Yellow, Isles of the Emberdark by Brandon Sanderson. Loved that one. That's one of my favorite short stories of his. For Green, Emily Wilde's Map of the Other Lands by Heather Fawcett. Teal, I Cheerfully Refuse by Leif Enger. Light Blue, Flirting with My Billionaire Boss by Cindy Ray Hale. That was cute. Blue, The Harp of Emic Thistle by Patricia C. Weirdy. And I think that's the third book in the series. I think I have two more left in that one. For Purple, Return to Edan by Philip Chase, and that was the last book in the series. Pink, we have Wild Love by Elsie Silver. Oh, I think that I used that one 3 times. That one's easy to change, though. I've got a lot of other pink books that I've read. Black, My Darling Dreadful Thing by Johanna Van Veen. That was so good. Again, tons of atmosphere. Loved it. For White, All the Pretty Horses by Cormac McCarthy, and that one was interesting. It was a kind of a historical Western, and I enjoyed it. I thought it was very well written, is easy to read, and the story was interesting. And then Silver Gold, I read Serafina, and I loved that book. Loved it. Gave that one 5 stars. And then for Multicolored, or 7+ colors, is My Best Friend's Exorcism by Grady Hendrix. Okay, so I think I have a book that will work here. One of the Girl Squad books could work for this, but I'm also thinking The Sun and the Star Maker. There's a whole lot of pink in here. It's all in here and here and over here. So that one could work. I'll keep looking and see if any of my other books would fit better than that, but that one will work. Okay, make a quote. So my quote was "Toe Pick" by the character Kate in The Cutting Edge, played by Moira Kelly. Love that movie. And if you've seen it, then you get the whole toe pick thing. I wasn't necessarily trying to go with a really short one, but I love that movie and I love that quote. So toe pick. And I read Toe Blake, and this one was by Paul Logothetis, and this one is all about the Canadian hockey player that was nicknamed Toe Blake. And then for pick, I read The Pickup by Hannah Doyle, and that was really cute. I enjoyed that one. That was 2 single parents meeting at the pickup spot at their kids' school. Then we have Spooky Creatures. For Vampire, I have I Am Legend by Richard Matheson. Also really good. I liked the original premise of the book that was vampires over the zombies from the movie. but I'm also more of a vampire than a zombie girl anyway, so. For Shifter, I read Broken Beasts, and there's werewolves and vampires and demons in that book. Magic User, Positively Poisonous by Melissa Erin Jackson. For The Fae Folk, I mean, I've read a lot, but I went with Halfway by Stephanie Void. There's Fae, there's also Half Fae, and then humans in that one. For Spirit, I read Portraits of the Forsaken by E.E. Holmes, and that one, you have ghosts in it, but you also have those who can see and speak to ghosts, kind of like the ghost whisperers kind of thing. And then for Merfolk, Mermaids and Merfolk, I've actually read a couple more recently. So The Deep by River Solomon, as well as Calypso the Sea Witch by Paul Mouchet. But I chose Tucked Away by Mel Parrish, and this is from the series Lives Entwined in Kind. And then for Zombies, Pride and Prejudice and Zombies, of course, one of my favorite books so far this year. And then for Other Creature, I read To Green Angel Tower by Tad Williams, and there are trolls. There's a lot of other creatures in there as well, but the trolls were awesome. And then for Become the Avatar, I believe she said if you were able to find the word in the title and on the cover, you could use the same book for them. So that's what I did. And I tried to make sure I didn't use these for anything else. For Water, I have Watership Down by Richard Adams. And that was a little disappointing. I didn't like it as much as I thought it was going to, unfortunately. It was still good, but yeah. I probably would have liked it more as a kid, but then as an adult. And then for Earth, I have The Pillars of the Earth by Ken Follett. That was amazing. Love that one. 5 stars. Between Two Fires by Christopher Buehlman. Also thoroughly love that book. And then Into Thin Air by John Krakauer. And then for the Readathon Challenge, I did Magical Readathon, and I used Karasu and his tome binding career or calling. And for that one, I read for Art of Illusion, Autumnal Setting, Long Live the Pumpkin Queen by Shay Earnshaw. For Spells and Incantations, you had to roll a d6, and I rolled a 1, so it had to be a book between 1 and 100 pages. And I read Necromancer by Lish McBride. I think it was 77 pages. And that is like a prequel novella to a series. And then in O for Inscription, prime number of letters in the title, and I read First Flight by Mary Robinette Cole. And then for a Q for Inscription, I read Vertical Spine Title, and that was Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. Animals. For House Pets, a cat, and I read The House Witch 2 by Dellum Hawk. For Exotic Pets, a cockatiel, and I read Erosphilia Agape, and that's by Rachel Swirsky. For Farm Animals, I read All the Pretty Horses by Cormac McCarthy, and of course there's horses in there. For Wild Animals, it's a fox, and that's A Witch's Guide to Magical Innkeeping by Sangu Mandana. Could use that one for a pink cover as well. Zoo Animals, Leopard and Puma. I believe there's a few others in there as well, but that is The Island of Dr. Moreau by H.G. Wells. I was also a little disappointed in that one. I thought it was going to be scarier or a little more atmospheric than it was. I think all the remakes of it are probably scarier and more suspenseful, I guess. Not necessarily scary, but more suspenseful. The Even Bigger Queer Alphabet. For Gay, We Love You Bunny by Mona Awad, and I actually loved that one. I don't mind second-person narrative, which I think is what most people didn't like about the book. I didn't mind it at all, and the ending of it was amazing. For Lesbian, Bury Our Bones in the Midnight Soil by V.E. Schwab. Bisexual/pansexual, Hellbent by Lee Bardugo. For Transgender, All the White Spaces by Allie Wilkes. Intersex, The Deep by River Solomon. Asexual, Down Among the Sticks and Bones by Shauna McGuire. Polyamory, Warrior Princess Assassin by Bridget Kemmerer. Non-binary agender, The River Has Roots by Amar El Matar. And then Gender Fluid Two-Spirit, A Darker Shade of Magic by V.E. Schwab. And then we move into favorite HRCYED 1 prompt, and I chose Read a Book in a Day over 500 pages, and I read Cress by Marissa Meyer, the first book in the Lunar Chronicles. That's the reason, this book right here is the reason I started July 1st instead of July 7th last year, because I happened to start that one on July 1st for my TBR, and it was over 500 pages, and I read the whole thing in one day, and it was amazing. And I'm like, well, I have to be able to count that because I'm not going to do that again, but yet I have, so I guess I didn't need to. BIPOC Challenge. BIPOC authors. Ecuadorian, Jawbone by Monaco Ojeda, and for one of my secret prompts, you could use one book for 3 prompts, and that's the one I chose. For Japanese, The Memory Police by Yoko Ogawa. Filipino, The Atlas Complex by Olivia Blake. African American, Cracks of Light by John Charles Reedberg. For Indigenous or Native American is Never Whistle at Night. I also read Chinese American, Girl Squad by ML Wong, all 3 books in the series. For Pakistan, Conqueror's Blood by Ismail Akhtar. Kuwaiti, The Stardust Thief by Chelsea Abdullah. For Colombia, 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. And that's another one that from the secret prompt, I was able to use books that I had read prior to July in 2025. And then India, 10 Incarnations of Rebellion by Vaishnavi Patel. And I did enjoy all of those. Okay, so we're going to skip these next 2 for right now. And we're going to, because those are the ones I was still working on. Let's go to the nonfiction challenge. And here's all of the nonfictions I've read. I think I had one more to put in here that I haven't put in here yet. But for politics, I have Common Sense by Thomas Paine. For memoir, Brat, an 80s Story by Andrew McCarthy. Science, What If by Randall Munroe. Social Justice, The Fire Next Time by James Baldwin. Nature, The Comfort of Crows by Margaret Renkel. Love that one as well. And then here's some of the other ones that I read. So like Into Thin Air, which wouldn't count because I've already used that a couple times. And that's sports travel. And then for mythology, I had Norse Mythology by Marie Campbell, I believe. Capitalism, that one, A Ghost Story. That one was interesting, political. I had Cobalt Red for business history. Tiny Habits for self-help, Courage is Calling for philosophy, Can I Live for personal development, Health was Everything Tuberculosis, that one was so good by John Green, Soundtracks by John Acuff, and The Anti-Inflammatory 30-Day Reset by Sophie Richards was also good. So I read quite a few nonfiction during the year. And then we have Q's recommendations. So Q's mini review, The Enchanted Greenhouse by Sarah Beth Durst, and I fully agreed with Q. Boringly enough, I fully agreed with Q on all 3 of these books. Full reading vlog was The Adventures of Mina Al-Sarafi, and for YouTube short, TikTok, Instagram Reel, one of those, Dungeon Crawler Carl by Matt Dinneman, and I did enjoy all of those. All right, now we go to new releases. New releases. This one was really fun and totally different for me because I don't typically read a lot of new releases. For July of 2025, I read Isles of the Emberdark by Brandon Sanderson. For August, Accomplice to the Villain by Hannah Nicole Mayer. For September, this one I got an arc for too. Loved it. So good. I love this whole series. So good. And that's Reckoning by Michael R. Miller. I would highly recommend it if you like Chosen One tropes or anything with dragons in it, found family. Yeah, so good. And then for October of 2025, Mate by Allie Hazelwood. I did enjoy Bride better, but I thought Mate was good. November, Brimstone by Callie Hart. Again, I liked the first book better, Quicksilver, than I did this one. December, The Library of Fates by Mario Harrison. Loved it. January, Dragon Curse by Elise Kova. Also loved it. February, The Sun and the Star Maker by Rachel Griffin. Loved it. Gave it 5 stars. March, The Faraway Inn by Sarah Beth Durst. That was surprising. I was on the wait list for this from my library, and I feel like they skipped like 15 people, and I just happened to get it. It was amazing. I got it so soon. And then I also got an ARC for the April book, crazily enough, and that was Japanese Gothic by Kylie Lee Baker, my favorite book of the year so far. Love it. So good. This is like the fever dream type of book, but the fever dream way that I like it, as opposed to the fever dream of space opera. This one was so good. Atmosphere and, oh yeah, so good. May, The Final System by Anthony Tardif, also enjoyed. And June, Jessica Strasser's The Quitters Club. Loved it. So good. That one made me tear up a bit. So I did complete this one, so I can click my little box there. So excited. And then Challenge Yourself, the last one we haven't looked at yet. And I would say I completed this one too. So I read Dead Stars Part 1, Iron Keys, The Weaver and the Worm, A Feast for Wolves, Blood for the Forest, Dead Stars Part 2, and No Fairy Tale. So those ones all went with the Emaneska series, and that is now complete. And then I moved into the Skulusan Chronicles, and I read The Forever King, Heavy Lies the Crown, and To Kill a God, and that completed that trilogy. I did also read Bengali's story only for all three of these, and that was Lost Lore, Heroes Wanted, and Unavowed. Those are all anthologies, and I will be reading all of those, all of the stories in them, but I wanted for this challenge only the Bengali story counted, so those are the ones that I read because I was falling behind on this one, so there we go. And then I completed the Bloodwood Saga trilogy, and that was Demon's Reign, Demon's Rage, and Demon's Ruin, and that was co-authored with David Estes, and I did enjoy those. So the only two I didn't get to was Blood Rush and Blood Moon, but I'm going to say, so Demon's Ruin I did not own when I started this challenge. I owned it afterwards, like it just came out in May, and that's when I read it. So I'm going to say that would count for at least one of these ones. So there's pretty much only two. I now own Blood Feud as well, but this is the only trilogy that I did not complete. And I did get the secret prompt that said I could manipulate a prompt of my choice, and I decided to read at least 80% of my Bengali books, and I actually did more than that, so that's awesome. Plus, I had to read a subscription box book, my oldest subscription box book that I hadn't read yet, and that was a Page and Wick subscription, which I have since canceled, and that is Sky of Fire by Madeline Carr, and I did really like that one. I'm looking forward to the second book whenever that happens to come out. It is, I have not even seen anything about a possible date for that yet, so we'll see if and when that one comes out. But yeah, so I am so excited about this one. So I'm going to say I did complete this one because there's really only, I would say only one book, because if I hadn't read Demon's Ruin, I would have read Blood Rush. So there was really only one book that I didn't get to, technically, from when I started the challenge, because I didn't own this one or this one. So I will try and get to the Blood Rush trilogy in HRCYED 3. I may not use it for HRCYED 3, but during that time period, I will read those three. Very excited. So let's go back to the board. And yes! I love it. They're all green. So cool. So excited. So many books. So many books. And then for the secret prompts, I did have those in here as well. And I did complete all 12 of them. And so for those, the secret prompt, the first one was to read outside, and that one I read The Body by Stephen King. Unfortunately, I did find out later it was an abridged version, but I did read it, so there we go. Book with a pun in the title, and that one I did get a free triple up, and that's I tripled up Jawbone. And for that one, I read The Importance of Being Earnest by Oscar Wilde. For September, I was listened to an audiobook and complete a craft, and I read The Bone Witch by Rinch Pecco. For October, read a book with a first and last name in the title, and for that one was Adventures of Mina al-Sarafi. For November, oh, I didn't put the book covers in here, but I did read these. Do the I'll get around to it later tag. Read as many of the books as you answer. For each book read, you can submit a book from earlier in 2025 before HRCYED 2.0 started. And I did read 4 books from that tag. I read The Last Unicorn, Last Sacrifice, The Stardust Thief, and The Book of Autumn. So I did have those 4 other books that I put in there. So I know there was a Ready Player One, The Sword of a Valkyrie, 100 Years of Solitude. Can't remember off the top of my head what the other one was, but I did use 4. I might have just used those 3. And then for December, find 2 books with the exact same title and read at least one of them. And I read We Used to Live Here by Marcus Clewer, but that one, or Cleaver. The W sounds like a V, I think, in the audiobook that I was listening to. So Marcus Cleaver. And then there's also We Used to Live Here by Daniel Hurst. And then I also read Catabasis by R.F. Kuang, but there's also one by Kim Rashidi, Lucia Estrada, and Mark Teppo. And then for January, read a book you missed out on in your childhood, and you can modify one HRCYED prompt. And these are in the wrong spot. That one goes down here. And I read Anne of Windy Poplars, but I would also say I could have used Girl Squad, the series by Emma Wong, in here as well. For secret prompt 8 for February, read a book where the title has the word for one of the colors on Joseph's coat, and I read Cobalt Red by Siddharth Kara. For March, doom scroll until you find a book you haven't read, and then read that book. And I read Warrior Princess Assassin by Bridget Kemmerer. And then for April, a book featuring movement on the cover or reading while exercising, and I actually did both, but that was Artemis Fowl and The Eternity Code by Owen Colfer. And lots of movement. We got the helicopter on here. You've got all of this energy coming out of this cube. This guy's floating. This guy's getting blasted back. So yeah, definitely a lot of movement on that cover. For May, read the last book you purchased, borrowed, or were gifted. And I had just gotten Joe Hill's King Sorrow from Libby, from my library that day. So perfect. And then for June, read a book where the author's name could also be someone's first name. And for this one, I read Nine-Tailed by J.C. Lee. So that is everything from HRCYED 2.0 that I read, and it was such a blast. At some point, I would love to go back and do HRCYED 1, or even go back and see if I can actually fit it into the books that I read during the time period of HRCYED 1. Someday when I have, all that extra time where I have a day, I could just go in and play and plan and things like that. I just think it would be so much fun. Either that or see which ones, because there's like the A to Z challenge, which I've done that multiple times. So like go through and see which ones that I've never done and do some of those, maybe one a month, one square a month or something. I don't know. I'm still kind of playing with that idea. So I just thought that would be a lot of fun though. But yeah, I'm so excited for this. So happy. And I cannot wait for HRCYED 3.0 to come in, because it's just going to be so much fun. Although I am going to say I'm a little sad because there's a couple of these prompts that I was already thinking, like, if this prompt came up again, what would I do and how could I change it and tweak it and things like that. And so I had all these ideas going on for that, and none of them are in there for HRCYED 3.0, but that's okay. It's nice to change things up. And yeah, like I asked before, what was your favorite square on the bingo board? I liked the spooky creatures one. I loved the translation challenge. That one was a lot of fun. And what was your least favorite one? I think the award season one was my least favorite one, only because there was a lot of books. It was hard to find some of the books, I guess. Like it was hard to find ones that had multiple layers. So you could find an entrant and a semifinalist, a finalist, and a winner. A lot of times there's just like the entrants and then the finalists, and that's it. There's not, or they have like 3 levels. They don't have all 4 levels. So I think that's the one I enjoyed the least. All the adaptations was fun, but also that one was definitely very challenging, trying to figure out what some of the stuff even meant. And like the web series, that one was difficult to figure out what actually was a web series, like what the definition Q wanted for that, and then finding ones and then finding the time to watch them and that. So that one was a little bit harder too. But I love the Around the World also. The Become the Avatar was fun. I just thought all of the prompts were very interesting, definitely very challenging. And I'm looking forward to starting 3.0, like I said earlier. I'm going to stop babbling now and say thank you so much for joining me today and for all of my videos in this HRCYED 2.0 series and for supporting me and joining in along with some of these reads and the fun challenges that came with it. And please like, comment, and subscribe if you want, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss any other bookish content. And until next time, keep reading. Bye!